Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well so far in 2015. We're a third month in, and if you're anything like me, you're in the Midwest, you are buried under ice and snow. If you're in the Northeast and you're really buried under a lot of ice and snow, I feel for you. Hopefully, spring will come soon. But there's a tag going around on YouTube. I saw it today called Dear Me, hashtag Dear Me. And basically, YouTubers are talking about advice they would give their past selves. And I decided I wanted to do this because my high school years, especially, were a nightmare. For a multitude of reasons, not the least of which was that for every bully in my high school, I might as well have had a big red target painted on my back. But it was not a fun time. And I think if I had had my future self come to me to give advice, well, probably first off, I would have freaked out. But I would have probably done things a little bit differently, or maybe a lot differently. Maybe this is why in time travel stories and sci-fi, they tell you not to change events of the past because it could cause a time-space continuum. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Anyway, so here's my message to my past self. Hopefully those of you who are high school age now will be able to use some of this advice in your own life. Dear Jennilee, your name isn't Jennilee yet, but it will be in the future because that's what legal name changes are for. Isn't it wonderful? Now, you will be going from being one of umpteen billion Jennifers and being referred to as Jen plus your surname for a long time, to being a unique name, feeling more like yourself, and having pretty much everybody who reads it butcher it. You can't have everything. Also, while these 4 years are extremely sucktacular, one of the biggest things you need to know is it will get better. And your desire to be loved and your desire to kind of mold yourself into someone you're not so that you think that people will love you, newsflash, it's not going to work. And you're going to spend most of your teenage life and your young adult life being miserable for doing so. Really, it's not worth it. And eventually you're going to get out of that space where the young you is craving love but feels like love has conditions, that love isn't achievable for you because you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not perfect enough. Eventually you're going to come out of that space and you're going to find someone who actually does love you for you, even if it's going to take you a really long time to see it. It's not always easy. And even now, 30-year-old Jennilee, 34-year-old Jennilee, anyway, I still have trouble loving myself. In fact, sometimes I really don't like myself, but I've gotten a lot better, and you will too. It's not easy, but even the most tiny little baby step in the right direction is progress, and progress is better than nothing. One of the things that you will find is your creative pursuits are still important. Your music, your art, your drawing, your crafting, all of that. Even if you're not perfect at it to the point where you could make a living from it, it's still important. There are still going to be people who like it, so keep doing it. However, when it comes to your career, you might want to look into technology. I know, seems like a foreign concept right now, but technology, internet, everything is going to be big. And speaking of the internet is going to be your lifesaver. And this is something I kind of have to break out of the advice section and talk to the people who are in high school now. You guys are really lucky, for the most part, that you have the internet, you have Facebook. I mean, I realize that cyberbullying goes on and you sometimes can't escape your bullies through Facebook and the internet. But in many cases, there's the flip side of the internet in that you can find communities and you can find safe spaces and you can find people who you can relate to and people who can relate to you on the internet. Back when I was in high school, that was still a newish thing. And dial-up modems were huge then, okay, if this gives you any indication, okay? We didn't have internet at my house. We didn't have anything like that. If I used Google at all, it was on a report my senior year in high school in the school library. Okay, it was definitely a much smaller thing than it is today. So finding that sort of safe space and that supportive group of people around me was a lot harder back then. And I think now for young people it's a lot easier because you can go on to places like Tumblr and other blog spaces. You can talk to people in various chat formats, and you can meet people from all over the world, all over the country, who feel a lot the way you do, and you guys can support each other. This is why I like the YouTuber Graveyard Girl, because she's a lot like me, and we kind of gather around us, or she gathers around her, really, what she calls her swamp family, and it's really a accepting space. There's a lot of people who struggle with this and that, and they kind of support each other and help each other, and I think that's beautiful, and I really am glad to be a part of that, and I'm hoping that, I can create the same kind of space around my channel. So definitely, if you can find, it's what I like to call a support network, and I think I didn't make up that term, obviously, I got it from somewhere. But if you can find that sort of structure, if you can find people around you who make you feel loved, make you feel good, make you happy, then keep those people around you as much as possible, whether they're online, whether they're in person, whether they're friends, family, people in your church, people in your workplace, whatever they are, whoever they are. Keep them as close to you as possible, because they can help you get through some of the really, really rough stuff. And if I'd had that advice when I was in high school, I think I might have done a lot better socially than I did. And I mean, it took me, I don't even want to admit how many years for me to really break out of my shell socially. I started at Parkland when I was 25. Yeah, 25. And I got into Phi Theta Kappa in 2007, so I was 26. And socially awkward doesn't even begin to describe it. And I know there are people who could watch this from my Facebook page. They could watch this and go, uh-huh. So, and socialization is important, even if you feel like a loner. There are ways to reach out to people thanks to the internet. That's my roundabout way of saying that. But back to my advice to my former self. You have ADHD. You won't find it out till you're an adult, but when you do find out, it will explain a lot of what's going on in your life now. And it sucks. And I know it sucks, but just know that everything that's going wrong with you, everything that makes you feel like you're stupid and you're lazy and you're insane and you're just wrong, probably a good 90% of it is not your fault. It's because you have wired up brain chemistry that's screwed up, and it's causing you to have moments of inattention, and there's not much you can do about that except try to treat it, but you won't catch it until much, much later. But it will help you understand a lot of what happened to you. Also, do not believe that you are unlovable. Do not believe that you're unlovable. And I still struggle with that now. I struggle with believing that I'm loved and that I'm worthy of being loved. But everyone on this earth, in some capacity, is worthy of being loved and should be loved by someone, even if it's just themselves. But for those of you who cannot love yourselves for whatever reason, do not believe the line that says that you cannot be loved if you can't love yourself, because it's complete and utter bunk. It is complete and utter bunk. I mean, what I want to know is, how is someone supposed to love themselves if they don't have an example of love to go off of? I mean, that was part of my problem. Not that I don't think people in my life back then loved me, but I didn't really have a good example from them of how to love myself. So it was really hard. And now I'm getting to the point where I've made progress. I can kind of love myself. I can mostly like myself. And some days I just try not to hate myself. But I know that I'm loved. I know my husband Jason loves me. I know Ranger loves me. I know my friends love me. And I know that my family loves me, both my family and my in-laws. So it's definitely achievable, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, whether you're short, tall, fat, thin, average, whether you have a bunch of acne on your face or you don't, whatever you look like, you are worthy of being loved. And being around people who don't actually love you and don't treat you well is not worth it. And you will definitely learn that when you meet your first husband self. But that's a whole other rant I'm not going to get into. Anyway, I've let this go on long enough, but I wanted to just say that I wanted to kind of give the advice to myself, but also give advice to young people now who may feel like I did back then. And to me, it's kind of a catharsis because it kind of let me get out some of the frustrations I felt back then. I know it's kind of long and rambly, but I hope you stayed with me to the end. Anyway, if you have a suggestion of a tag or something you want me to do, let me know in the comments below, or find me on Twitter or Instagram. If you just want to say hi, that's fine too. If you have any questions for me, you can leave them in a comment. I'm always open to answering polite questions. Emphasis on the polite. And subscribe if you want to see more of my weird and wacky life. I hope you're all having a good day, and remember to love yourselves. Okay? I know it's hard, but you should keep trying. Okay. Mwah. Bye-bye.